Hello my best friend. Nice to meet you again. If in the previous video, we discussed the history of Chichen Itza, let's move on to a city that is no less beautiful than anywhere else. It turns out that relics of the past in the form of cities can not only be found in the history of Chichen Itza, Mex in other parts of the world, Peru to be precise. There are robbers of continued robbery. Heritage forward. This building is unique. This building is unique. This picture. Night. Answer number 8 in this moment of life. Not from this moment, in Film House. Exactly on July 7, 2007 there were about 100 million people on Earth chose Machu Picchu as a tourist spot that deserves to be categorized by the 7 wonders of the world. Great support sent through short message services (SMS) and the Internet resulted in the decision, which was determined by the Swiss Foundation, that Machu Picchu is indeed worthy of this position. The first discovery was made by an archaeologist from Yale University, United States. The name of the archaeologist of this ancient site is Hiram Bingham, who discovered in Machu Picchu in 1911 AD. This means that it is still a new site compared to the historical discoveries of the Egyptian pyramids, the history of the Taj Mahal and the history of the Kaaba. The inventor, Bingham, discovered this legacy by accident. Starting from a college assignment that took him on a scientific expedition in the Andes Mountains. Bingham Hanel's original goal was to explore and study the wild vegetation there. But God worshipped him as an intermediary to open the eyes of the world of the greatness of past civilizations. Bingham brings a tour guide who first mastered the ins and outs of the Andes Mountains. Together they explored parts of the Andes Mountains that were still unfamiliar. Because the forest is thick, then hands have to come to play everywhere and the bushes are very wild. With eyes of happiness, Bingham looked at the ancient building. At that time the magnificent building was still very blurry because it was covered by a number of trees and was woefully tall. Of course Bingham with his guide didn't immediately believe their normal eyes. It was as if the whole thing was a terrifying and amazing mystical experience. But it turns out he saw was a real building, not just his imagination with a tour guide. By taking advantage of the belief in the meaning of buildings and their influence on human civilization, Bingham became even more curious. He firmly believed that the building he saw was the construction of instructions to reveal the greatness of the Incas on Earth. Many studies were then carried out by related parties in the Machu Picchu region. News of artifacts of high value, beautiful landscapes and other ancient instructions and then quickly spread throughout America and the world. The theory of the Machu Picchu building from the archaeological site is that it was a former building belonging to the Incas in the period before Columbus discovered the Americas. This location is exactly at the dampness of the People's Building of Urubamba, Peru. The customized place 70 km from Cusco is a gilded city. The founder of the magnificent city was the same person as the founder of the Erie Inca kingdom, which was purged since 1440 AD. Pachacutec Yacanqui was the first king of the Incan Empire. He founded Machu Picchu as a symbol of their devotion and enduring community in the midst of the Amazon jungle and the headwaters of the Urubamba River. It should be noted that the Amazon forest is one of the forests in the world that contributes to a large supply of oxygen for America and the world. Many rare animals and flora inhabit the green forest. Because it was classified as a newly discovered, there was soon a lot of speculation about the redundant building dating back to the last century. There are many experts who released a new theory that briefly commented on the discovery of the magnificent city on the hill. Some of them believe Machu Picchu is not an administrative city, but the tomb of the founder of the Inca Empire, Pachacutec. The theory that supports Machu Picchu as a tomb building is based on the amount of gold-plated parts of the building there. Meanwhile, another theory that insists on considering Machu Picchu as an administrative illustration city, which usually became the economic center of small areas under the Inca Empire, did not provide concrete evidence. These people believed that the Inca aristocrats were muted at Machu Picchu. It turns out that these are not the only two-colored theories of the development of Machu Picchu. Some scholars have put forth the theory that Machu Picchu was the villa of an influential person from the Inca Empire. It is also the site of astrological and seasonal observation ceremonies. Few of us remember the history of Chichen Itza, Mexico, which is also famous for its sophistication of buildings and their close relationship with astronomy. The buildings there even have their own counts, which are all related to their knowledge. Meanwhile, local people believe that the silhouette of the mountain, which in their language is called Huayna Picchu aka Young Mountain, is the Inca nose facing the sky. The architecture of Machu Picchu is the history of the Colosseum arranges audience seats in its theater building. Machu Picchu also has its own order in its building. This site has many levels where each level describes their high power and honor in society. So it can be predicted that the life of the Inca is against the history of human rights in the world. The more the Incas held a high position, the higher their level of sitting in the city of Machu Picchu. What needs to be underlined is only the peak level in Machu Picchu. The Incas used the highest area of A circumflex Euro Machu Picchu as a place to honor the sun. This ceremony was held every day by the Incas. The results of Inca culture. From this we can see that the custom of worshipping the sun that originated in ancient times is not only owned by Japanese people in the East. Even the ancient peoples of America also loved to worship the sun. Maybe because they felt that life in the world wouldn't go on even less terrible if there wasn't a sun that rotated every day. The difference is in the cultural outcomes of the Aina people, which have been classified as sophisticated, almost like a virtual tribe, which surprises modern research. The Incan people around Machu Picchu had almost the same stone as the classical piano. The stone was no ordinary ancient stone. The Incas called it Intilahua, which means the sun mooring place. And it turns out that its function was as a sundial, a reminder of time for the life of the Incas. Another custom of the same Incas, because the Mayans were located in the agricultural world. Two large tribes used to keep a lot of farmland to use as a place to support the family. Cultivated crops are the main crops for them, such as coke, corn and roses and other vegetables. Incan society growing cocas does not mean they have used drugs as processed cocaine and some types of modern drugs. At least we can know the similarities between ancient people and modern people. As a habit of the indigenous population in the Papua region, Indonesia consumes marijuana as a friend of fresh rice. Of course we cannot blame them for that, especially to assume that their heritage buildings are not important for entering history just because of ancient customs. There is another reason that can be explained scientifically why ancient people liked to consume agricultural products from illegal drugs. Machu Picchu vacated, still associated with the Mayans. It turns out that the Incas also left their magnificent city, as the Mayans left their Chichen Itza due to newcomers. The Incas also left Machu Picchu due to the arrival of the Spaniards in South America. This already has a lot of evidence in the form of antiquities at Machu Picchu. Experts and archaeologists have a different opinion on the reality at Machu Picchu. For them, the Incas who left the city of Machu Picchu were caused by a smallpox epidemic that almost became a blackout. There are more than half of the townspeople who were killed were attacked by smallpox around 1527 AD. This plague then weakened the size of the Incas. There are many swamps in the internal kingdom. Everywhere, an ancient building that had a bloody history due to war and torture would always be feared for generations to come. After the Ina kingdom was completely destroyed by civil war, a Spaniard named Pizarro had just come to Cuzco. At that time the year shows the number 1532A, and Machu Picchu is already a haunted city whose beauty above the clouds is not worthy of control by the Spanish. In fact, only Machu Picchu is the only symbol of the power of the Inca Empire that has ever been known to be almost as great as the might of the Mayans. The cultural heritage site was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage aka World Cultural Heritage Place in 1982. It's just that the unattractive and the new seven wonders of the world have succeeded in the decades since. The Machu Picchu site has caught the public's attention not because of its beauty hanging in the clouds. These attractions are famous for many tourists who come not to learn their history, but we recommend a lot of damage in this part of the site. Although Machu Picchu is one of the important sites which is a testament to how ancient times many ancient civilizations had a higher architectural art than today's architectural art. Respecting Americans for Machu Picchu at the time of its discoverer, Hiram Bingham, encountered this site for the first time, this place looked very scary. When Hiram had to clear the vegetation of the Amudan Hudum trees that seemed to have become one with the old site for centuries. You can imagine how difficult it is to clear the thick ground in the middle of the forest on a hill of medium height. All this was done with one main goal: to study the traces of the history of the Incas. The Andes Mountains in Peru do save many mysteries. When archaeologists learned of Bingham's discovery, they were immediately enthusiastic about helping because with the appearance of this ancient building, there was a great civilization in human history that could be learned from the original evidence available. Unfortunately, the buildings in the Andes Mountain Room had not been touched by human hands for too long. Contrary to the customs of our society, Americans have great respect for their culture and history. Although the history of Indonesia has proven to be much richer than the history of the nation. One testament to America's respect for Machu Picchu's new invention is the crowds of visitors. About 2,500 people visit this site every day. Although the trip was not as smooth as the trip to the area in the lowlands. The media in the United States have agreed to consider Machu Picchu as the most important and most preserved building in the world dating from an ancient civilization. Of course, if they make statements like this because they are the American generation. Even though it is the main source of income for the Peruvert government, it is not necessarily the government will continue to increase advertising so that Machu Picchu is increasingly crowded with visitors. The American government and archaeological site observers fear that the number of visitors arriving each day could potentially cause damage to the building parts of the old archaeological site. Until now, the Peruvian government continues to try to improve the protection of the site. Cusco is a must-visit city when visiting Peru. The city of 300,000 people is near the Urubamba Valley, Andes Mountains. The location reaches an altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. No wonder the temperature here can reach 1 degree Celsius during winter. Cusco was once the capital of the Inca Empire that ruled most of South America. Although the Jagus ended in 1533 ago, the royal Inca left behind the culture that shaped Peru. Machu Picchu is a relic of the Inca Empire. Since 1983, this attraction has been listed on a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The temperature in Machu Picchu is not as cold as in Cusco, because it is located in the Urubamba Valley, with an altitude of only 2,350 meters above sea level. Although this area is quite remote, but based on the history, Machu Picchu was the capital of government in the Inca Empire. At first glance it was impossible to create a kingdom in the middle of the valley like this. Entering Mayact Gate, tourists can see clearer construction works of the Inca Empire in time. Everything is built of stone with no added cement or anything. When Spain colonized 500 years ago, all the buildings here were abandoned by the Incas. The Inca Empire was indeed spread everywhere, almost throughout South America. Despite being guarded by the Spaniards and defeated, this ancient kingdom continues to wield great influence, especially when it comes to citizens today. Prior to the arrival of Christianity and Catholicism, the entire Cusco community believed in gods who guarded the universe. Although not a majority, there is still an Islamic community in Cusco. Ibrahim is one of the Muslims out of a total of 14 Muslims here. Ibrahim embraced Islam 6 years ago. Previously he was familiar with the religious rituals of the Inca royal. The San Pedro market is one of the centers of community activity here. Ibrahim said that in this market there are a number of items commonly used in the Inca royal prayer rituals. Because this is my best friend, the history of the kingdom of Machu Picchu, if there is a mistake I apologize. If you want to share photos, videos, unique history can be sent via email in the description. And thank you very much. Hello my best friend. Nice to meet you again. If in the previous video, we discussed the history of Chichen Itza, let's move on to a city that is no less beautiful than anywhere else. It turns out that relics of the past in the form of cities can not only be found in the history of Chichen Itza, Mex in other parts of the world, Peru to be precise. There are robbers of continued robbery. Heritage forward. This building is unique. This building is unique. This picture. Night. Answer number 8 in this moment of life. Not from this moment, in Film House. Exactly on July 7, 2007 there were about 100 million people on Earth chose Machu Picchu as a tourist spot that deserves to be categorized by the 7 wonders of the world. Great support sent through short message services (SMS) and the Internet resulted in the decision, which was determined by the Swiss Foundation, that Machu Picchu is indeed worthy of this position. The first discovery was made by an archaeologist from Yale University, United States. The name of the archaeologist of this ancient site is Hiram Bingham, who discovered in Machu Picchu in 1911 AD. This means that it is still a new site compared to the historical discoveries of the Egyptian pyramids, the history of the Taj Mahal and the history of the Kaaba. The inventor, Bingham, discovered this legacy by accident. Starting from a college assignment that took him on a scientific expedition in the Andes Mountains. Bingham Hanel's original goal was to explore and study the wild vegetation there. But God worshipped him as an intermediary to open the eyes of the world of the greatness of past civilizations. Bingham brings a tour guide who first mastered the ins and outs of the Andes Mountains. Together they explored parts of the Andes Mountains that were still unfamiliar. Because the forest is thick, then hands have to come to play everywhere and the bushes are very wild. With eyes of happiness, Bingham looked at the ancient building. At that time the magnificent building was still very blurry because it was covered by a number of trees and was woefully tall. Of course Bingham with his guide didn't immediately believe their normal eyes. It was as if the whole thing was a terrifying and amazing mystical experience. But it turns out he saw was a real building, not just his imagination with a tour guide. By taking advantage of the belief in the meaning of buildings and their influence on human civilization, Bingham became even more curious. He firmly believed that the building he saw was the construction of instructions to reveal the greatness of the Incas on Earth. Many studies were then carried out by related parties in the Machu Picchu region. News of artifacts of high value, beautiful landscapes and other ancient instructions and then quickly spread throughout America and the world. The theory of the Machu Picchu building from the archaeological site is that it was a former building belonging to the Incas in the period before Columbus discovered the Americas. This location is exactly at the dampness of the People's Building of Urubamba, Peru. The customized place 70 km from Cusco is a gilded city. The founder of the magnificent city was the same person as the founder of the Erie Inca kingdom, which was purged since 1440 AD. Pachacutec Yacanqui was the first king of the Incan Empire. He founded Machu Picchu as a symbol of their devotion and enduring community in the midst of the Amazon jungle and the headwaters of the Urubamba River. It should be noted that the Amazon forest is one of the forests in the world that contributes to a large supply of oxygen for America and the world. Many rare animals and flora inhabit the green forest. Because it was classified as a newly discovered, there was soon a lot of speculation about the redundant building dating back to the last century. There are many experts who released a new theory that briefly commented on the discovery of the magnificent city on the hill. Some of them believe Machu Picchu is not an administrative city, but the tomb of the founder of the Inca Empire, Pachacutec. The theory that supports Machu Picchu as a tomb building is based on the amount of gold-plated parts of the building there. Meanwhile, another theory that insists on considering Machu Picchu as an administrative illustration city, which usually became the economic center of small areas under the Inca Empire, did not provide concrete evidence. These people believed that the Inca aristocrats were muted at Machu Picchu. It turns out that these are not the only two colored theories of the development of Machu Picchu. Some scholars have put forth the theory that Machu Picchu was the villa of an influential person from the Inca Empire. It is also the site of astrological and seasonal observation ceremonies. Few of us remember the history of Chichen Itza, Mexico, which is also famous for its sophistication of buildings and their close relationship with astronomy. The buildings there even have their own counts, which are all related to their knowledge. Meanwhile, local people believe that the silhouette of the mountain, which in their language is called Huayna Picchu aka Young Mountain, is the Inca nose facing the sky. The architecture of Machu Picchu is the history of the Colosseum arranges audience seats in its theater building. Machu Picchu also has its own order in its building. This site has many levels where each level describes their high power and honor in society. So it can be predicted that the life of the Inca is against the history of human rights in the world. The more the Incas held a high position, the higher their level of sitting in the city of Machu Picchu. What needs to be underlined is only the peak level in Machu Picchu. The Incas used the highest area of A circumflex Euro Machu Picchu as a place to honor the sun. This ceremony was held every day by the Incas. The results of Inca culture. From this we can see that the custom of worshipping the sun that originated in ancient times is not only owned by Japanese people in the East. Even the ancient peoples of America also loved to worship the sun. Maybe because they felt that life in the world wouldn't go on even less terrible if there wasn't a sun that rotated every day. The difference is in the cultural outcomes of the Aina people, which have been classified as sophisticated, almost like a virtual tribe, which surprises modern research. The Incan people around Machu Picchu had almost the same stone as the classical piano. The stone was no ordinary ancient stone. The Incas called it Intilahua, which means the sun mooring place. And it turns out that its function was as a sundial, a reminder of time for the life of the Incas. Another custom of the same Incas, because the Mayans were located in the agricultural world. Two large tribes used to keep a lot of farmland to use as a place to support the family. Cultivated crops are the main crops for them, such as coke, corn and roses and other vegetables. Incan society growing cocas does not mean they have used drugs as processed cocaine and some types of modern drugs. At least we can know the similarities between ancient people and modern people. As a habit of the indigenous population in the Papua region, Indonesia consumes marijuana as a friend of fresh rice. Of course, we cannot blame them for that, especially to assume that their heritage buildings are not important for entering history just because of ancient customs. There is another reason that can be explained scientifically why ancient people liked to consume agricultural products from illegal drugs. Machu Picchu vacated, still associated with the Mayans. It turns out that the Incas also left their magnificent city, as the Mayans left their Chichen Itza due to newcomers. The Incas also left Machu Picchu due to the arrival of the Spaniards in South America. This already has a lot of evidence in the form of antiquities at Machu Picchu. Experts and archaeologists have a different opinion on the reality at Machu Picchu. For them, the Incas who left the city of Machu Picchu were caused by a smallpox epidemic that almost became a blackout. There are more than half of the townspeople who were killed were attacked by smallpox around 1527 AD. This plague then weakened the size of the Incas. There are many swamps in the internal kingdom. Everywhere, an ancient building that had a bloody history due to war and torture would always be feared for generations to come. After the Ayna kingdom was completely destroyed by civil war, a Spaniard named Pizarro had just come to Cuzco. At that time the year shows the number 1532A, and Machu Picchu is already a haunted city whose beauty above the clouds is not worthy of control by the Spanish. In fact, only Machu Picchu is the only symbol of the power of the Inca Empire that has ever been known to be almost as great as the might of the Mayans. The cultural heritage site was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage aka World Cultural Heritage Place in 1982. It's just that the unattractive and the new Seven Wonders of the world have succeeded in the decades since. The Machu Picchu site has caught the public's attention not because of its beauty hanging in the clouds. These attractions are famous for many tourists who come not to learn their history, but we recommend a lot of damage in this part of the site. Although Machu Picchu is one of the important sites, which is a testament to how ancient times many ancient civilizations had a higher architectural art than today's architectural art. Respecting Americans for Machu Picchu at the time of its discoverer, Hiram Bingham, encountered this site for the first time. This place looked very scary. When Hiram had to clear the vegetation of the Amudan Hudum trees that seemed to have become one with the old site for centuries. You can imagine how difficult it is to clear the thick ground in the middle of the forest on a hill of medium height. All this was done with one main goal: to study the traces of the history of the Incas. The Andes Mountains in Peru do save many mysteries. When archaeologists learned of Bingham's discovery, they were immediately enthusiastic about helping because with the appearance of this ancient building, there was a great civilization in human history that could be learned from the original evidence available. Unfortunately, the buildings in the Andes Mountain Room had not been touched by human hands for too long. Contrary to the customs of our society, Americans have great respect for their culture and history. Although the history of Indonesia has proven to be much richer than the history of the nation. One testament to America's respect for Machu Picchu's new invention is the crowds of visitors. About 2,500 people visit this site every day. Although the trip was not as smooth as the trip to the area in the lowlands. The media in the United States have agreed to consider Machu Picchu as the most important and most preserved building in the world dating from an ancient civilization. Of course, if they make statements like this because they are the American generation. Even though it is the main source of income for the Peruvert government, it is not necessarily the government will continue to increase advertising so that Machu Picchu is increasingly crowded with visitors. The American government and archaeological site observers fear that the number of visitors arriving each day could potentially cause damage to the building parts of the old archaeological site. Until now, the Peruvian government continues to try to improve the protection of the site. Cusco is a must-visit city when visiting Peru. The city of 300,000 people is near the Urubamba Valley, Andes Mountains. The location reaches an altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. No wonder the temperature here can reach 1 degree Celsius during winter. Cusco was once the capital of the Inca Empire that ruled most of South America. Although the Jagus ended in 1533 ago, the royal Inca left behind the culture that shaped Peru. Machu Picchu is a relic of the Inca Empire. Since 1983, this attraction has been listed on a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The temperature in Machu Picchu is not as cold as in Cusco, because it is located in the Urubamba Valley, with an altitude of only 2,350 meters above sea level. Although this area is quite remote, but based on the history, Machu Picchu was the capital of government in the Inca Empire. At first glance, it was impossible to create a kingdom in the middle of the valley like this. Entering Mayact Gate, tourists can see clearer construction works of the Inca Empire in time. Everything is built of stone with no added cement or anything. When Spain colonized 500 years ago, all the buildings here were abandoned by the Incas. The Inca Empire was indeed spread everywhere, almost throughout South America. Despite being guarded by the Spaniards and defeated, this ancient kingdom continues to wield great influence, especially when it comes to citizens today. Prior to the arrival of Christianity and Catholicism, the entire Cusco community believed in gods who guarded the universe. Although not a majority, there is still an Islamic community in Cusco. Ibrahim is one of the Muslims out of a total of 14 Muslims here. Ibrahim embraced Islam 6 years ago. Previously, he was familiar with the religious rituals of the Inca royal. The San Pedro market is one of the centers of community activity here. Ibrahim said that in this market there are a number of items commonly used in the Inca royal prayer rituals. Because this is my best friend, the history of the kingdom of Machu Picchu, if there is a mistake I apologize. If you want to share photos, videos, unique history can be sent via email in the description. And thank you very much.